Okay, welcome everybody. Good morning, and Chaf Hey Amud Aleph. Just to get our bearings over here. The Gemara was talking about the Chav David Rashi Avrohom, that not only Shein Ryan, if the master knocks out the tooth or the eye of the Eved Kanani, so he goes free. And the Gemara learned out not only the Shein Ryan, but also other Avrohom that are similar. And the Gemara said the similarity has to be that it's Mum Shebegolui, it's a revealed limb, and also that it's a permanent damage in a choser. The Gemara said yesterday, Rosh, how you know that? Yesterday, the Gemara started about Saris, if he was Misares, and the Gemara Misares Bebeitzim, and that in the testicles, he damaged the Evet's testicles. Is that considered a goli or not? And Rashi explains the question is because on one hand, you do see the fact that it's in the kiss, it's in the sac, so it is noticeable, but you don't actually see it. Is that called goli or not? And that was the question of the Sabid and Ziyana. They're very upset that Rav Nuna didn't know the answer. And if Chesed brought a brisa that says a machlokis, it comes out after we finish analyzing the brisa that Rebbe holds afasirus, that also was sirus bebeitzim. Everybody's going to hold that the gvia, the gid itself was mentioned already, but the sirus bebeitzim, that's a machlokis. Tanakam and Ben Nazir, both of them said not. And Rabbi said, yes. So it comes out of machlokis. The answer, is it considered goloi? Is a machlokis. Now the Gemara, we're up to Ula. And the Gemara has the Gemara goes on a tangent over here. From here to the bottom of the page, we can put in parentheses if we like. It's a side point. Because the Brisa mentions something about the tongue. So we're going off to that subject temporarily till we get back to it again on the Amud base. So here in the Brisa, we had a machlokis if the tongue is considered begoli or not. The way the Gemara explained it, Rebbe holds that Rebbe also held. How does the Gemara go? The Gemara just finished explaining that Brisa says, what was that? There was a Brisa here. But the Gemara came out that Rebbe also holds that the tongue is considered revealed. And Ben Azai, Tanaka, everybody, and I mean, Tanakama not, but Rebbe and Ben Nazai, both of them say yes. And Rebbe says even serious. So the Gemara is going to go on a tangent now about the tongue. Is the tongue considered goloi? On one hand, you could say that you don't see it, it's covered up. But the fact that he could stick out his tongue, he could extend his tongue out of his mouth, maybe that's the reason why it's considered megula maybe. So the Gemara starts, Amar Ula. Chafim and Aleph, Amar Ula.
What?
We didn't get too far. We had some difficulties, technical difficulties. Amar Ula. Akol modim v'loshan linyan tuma they golayu eitzel sheretz. So a little preview. The Gemara is going to talk about the issue of being golay or not. The fact that it's considered revealed or covered up, it has other ramifications. Our subject here was talking about. We talked about tzaras. We talked about David Kanani. The Gemara now is talking about Azah and Tuma and Tvila. Is it considered revealed or not? So the Gemara starts. Amula. Hakol modim v'loshon linyan Tuma the golayu eitzel sheretz. Everybody holds that the tongue is going to be considered goloi as far as becoming contaminated, becoming tummy. If a sheretz or any kind of tumah touches the tongue of a person, is that considered that he touched him in a revealed place or not? Because there's a halacha that tumah stobis astorim. If something, the internal parts of a person, they're not vulnerable to tumah, only if it's a goloi. So if a sheretz touched somebody's tongue, is that considered that he touched him in base of storm or not? So everybody agrees that it's considered megula. Everybody knows that it's considered revealed. Even though the tongue is inside the mouth and you can say that it's considered internal, no, it's considered revealed. My time
can come in and out. The tongue can be both in and out.
The Gemara is going to talk about all different aspects, and that's going to be the subject. My timer, so right, it's a little difficult, the words of the Gemara. Rashi explains a bit more than the Gemara says. The Gemara says for sure that this pasuk is going to show us that tongue is considered revealed. Rashi explains that the pasuk is a little bit longer than the Gemara brings down. If you look at Rashi here, it says, just make it smaller. V'chol, I'm trying to highlight it here. This is the pasuk v'chol asher yiga bo azav. Doesn't mean the whole pasuk. Yadav l'shatav v'amoyim. There's anything that the pasuk simply would read anything that the zav touched, and his hands were not washed. The person who became tamei is the person who was touched. It becomes tamei. Anything that the zav touches and his hands were not washed. The pasuk pshat and the pasuk is not the halacha. The pasuk pshat sounds like that if the zav would have washed his hands, and someone's a zav, he's very tummy. If he would have washed his hands and touched somebody, he wouldn't become tummy. And that's impossible. Of course, he has to go to the mikvah, not have to wash his hands. So the Gemara has a drash on the pasuk, which is very far from the pasuk of reading. But Rashi says, any body that the zav touched, the yadav is not going on the hands of the zav, it's going on the hands of the person who was touched. And he touched him on his hands, or he touched him on some part of his body which is similar to his hands. So then, if the zav was not shut off in a mikvah, he didn't wash himself in a mikvah, so then, if he best then the person becomes tamei. It's a very hard, sophisticated drasha, but it comes out that from this pasuk we learn out that the person who became tamei is only tamei if he was touched on a part of his body which is megula, which is like his hands. His hands, just like his hands are revealed. So too, he's only becomes tamei if he was touched on a part of his body which is revealed. Doesn't mean there's no clothing on it. It means that it wasn't a base of stone, that it wasn't something inside of his body. Now, and that's what the Gemara says, that even though it says Asher Yigabo, Rashi says it means the rest of the pasuk also, the whole pasuk with Yadav. So that's what the Gemara says, that is Pashut, that the tongue is going to be considered like his hands. Why is it so Pashut?
If somebody gets touched, let's say, on the pants and not on the goof itself, would they be tamei?
So I think that the pants are going to become tamei, and if it's maybe it'll be enough tamei to be tamei him sometimes. But if it doesn't touch him, so then you have to look at each thing each step at a time. So the drush is a bit hard, and the Gemara, the words of the Gemara don't say exactly what Rashi said, but that's the Gemara says for sure. He becomes tamei if the sheretz touched his tongue. Rashi says points out because he can stick out his tongue. It's possible to be megula, the fact that he can stick out his tongue. I don't see it in the Gemara too much. Rashi says that that's what the Gemara means, that it is similar to his hands, the fact that he can stick out his tongue. So therefore, if the sheretz touched his tongue, even if he didn't stick out his tongue, the sheretz was put into his mouth. Also, he becomes tamei because his tongue is considered megula. So everybody agrees to that. Because the pasuk said my timer, because the pasuk says Asher Yigabo, that's the pasuk. Asher Yigabo. Amar Rahman, the pasuk says Asher Yigabo. Rashi puts in Yadav. This was touched. Rashi says, how was it touched? You could touch it outside because he could stick out his tongue. Very much not in the words of the Gemara, but that's what Rashi explains. That's the Indian Tumah. The Indian Tvila, Ketamandami. Everybody agrees that as far as Tvila, that it is considered hidden part of his body, and that the Gemara says means he doesn't have to open up his mouth, that the water should go into his mouth. When he goes to the mikvah, does he have to open up his mouth in order that the water should come onto his tongue? So no, that's considered based on stomach, he doesn't have to open up his mouth. Then in Tefillah, everybody holds that as far as immersing himself in a mikvah, that the tongue is considered internal and he doesn't have to open up his mouth. My timer, because the pasuk says, as far as Tefillah, the pasuk says that he should wash himself in water, his flesh in water, and therefore means only thing which is similar to flesh. Just like this flesh, his skin, is outside. The word avroy means outside, external. So too, only things that are external. And Rashi explains that the tongue is not external, and even though if he would stick out his tongue, he can make it external, but part of his tongue is still. Rashi has a whole lumdus that even if he's going to stick out his tongue, but he can't get his whole tongue out. So there's no such thing as putting half something into the mikvah. A mikvah is always going to be when the whole thing goes into the mikvah. So if you can't get the whole tongue out, so there's no svara to say that he has to stick out half of his tongue. So therefore, for sure, the tongue is not similar to basar, and therefore, when he goes to the mikvah, he doesn't have to open up his mouth because it's considered internal. So those two, right, the Gemara says, are givens. There's no, we had a machlokes if the tongue is considered external or not. Here the Gemara says that everybody agrees as far as tumah, it is considered external. That means if the sheretz touches his tongue, he does become tameh. Everybody agrees that as far as the mikvah, it's considered internal, and he doesn't have to open up his mouth in order that the water should come onto his tongue. So what is the machlokes? The machlokes is going to be when if you sprinkle the paraduma water, which we did yesterday, and I just wasn't finding it right now. That's the machlokes. If the here it was, where did it go? Here it is. We're in the third wide line. And the Gemara says it's talking about his tongue. So first the Gemara says for time, but then the Gemara said the Brisa says Lashono. So it says here machlokes if the water of the sprinkling, you have a person became tamei mace, and he has to be sprinkled by the water of the ashes of the paraduma. They mix the ashes of the paraduma together with mayim chaim, and you sprinkle onto the person. It has to go onto an external part of his body. So, and it doesn't go onto his whole body. When you mazeh the meichatas, it doesn't have to go on the whole person. It's not a mikvah. He doesn't have to sprinkle it. It's go on some part of his body, but it has to go on an external part of his body. So if it came onto his tongue, it didn't go on. They sprinkled it. He had his mouth open, and the meichatas, the water of the ashes of the paraduma, it came onto his tongue.
And not on his body.
Not on his body. It only came onto his tongue. Where it came on his body, he's good enough. So is that considered a good azar? So that was what the Brisa said. Maybe I should have highlighted that because that's the subject we're going on. Shaya Mazev, and this azal. If somebody was sprinkling the water, the paraduma, and it came onto somebody's mouth, which the Gemara explains means the tongue. Rebbe says it's a good azal. It's considered that he sprinkled on his body, on his external body. It's considered external. And the Chacham say, no, it's not. It's considered internal. It's not considered part of the body that has to be sprinkled. So now Ula is coming to explain that. Everybody agrees that as far as tumah, he can become tameh if the sheretz would have touched his tongue. Everybody agrees that when he goes to the mikveh, he doesn't have to open up his mouth in order that the water should come in. What is the machlokes? Lenyan hazar. This thing we spoke about, if the hazar goes onto his tongue, is that considered a good hazar? That's machlokes. Is it considered like tumah that you see that the tongue is considered revealed, or do you look at it like tefillah that the tongue is considered internal? So where do you get the machlokes from? The argument for the following pasuk. So we'll highlight the pasuk over here. This is the whole pasuk. I'm sorry. I got confused over there. There's a Vagomer over there, but let's start it again. This word v'chito I did 2 times. That's how I take away this pasuk. We can look on the side also. It has it. But the pasuk is talking about when a person has to get sprinkled with the paraduma. So it says that the Torah person should sprinkle onto the tamei person on the 3rd and 7th day. V'chito b'yom hashvi'i, and he should cleanse him on the 7th day. V'chibes b'kadav v'chas b'mayim. He has to wash his clothing in the mikveh, and he has to wash in the mikveh. So it talks about the mitzvah of hazah over here, and the focus is going to be how you dash in the pasuk. So the introduction was everybody holds as far as becoming tamei, the tongue is considered megula. As far as going to the mikveh, everyone knows that it's considered internal. The machlokes is as far as hazah.
If it wouldn't work according to that,
What wouldn't work? What
it
wouldn't work?
wouldn't work because his mouth is considered internal.
What wouldn't
in
work?
terms
What
of-
wouldn't work?
The meichatas.
So that's what they're arguing about. The
I know
argument,
that,
and the more wants to know where's the machlokes, what's the shorish of the machlokes, where they're getting it from. Everybody holds as far as becoming tamei, the tongue is considered external. Everybody agrees if the gabi the mikvah, going into the mikveh, everybody holds that the tongue is considered internal. The machlokes is, as far as hazah, sprinkling onto the person, is the tongue considered external or internal? If it's external, it's a good hazah. If it's internal, it's not a good hazah. Where do I get the machlokes from? From the following pasuk. Visa ta'ala tameh, etc., which now the Gemara explains. Rabbi Sava, visa ta'ala tameh, b'yom hashlishi b'yom hashvi, v'chito. Of course, it continues v'chito b'yom hashvi, but he stops over there. It says that the Torah person should sprinkle onto the tameh person on the third and seventh day, and he should v'chito. The v'chito is going to be the Gemara's going to dash in the tameh. It says here tameh. We're going to dash in this tameh. Tameh means that he's tameh. Then he's talking about. It mentions the issue of Tumah, and Tumah we said that it is considered external. So when it says v'chito, so it's talking about the hazah, the sprinkling, making in Torah now. So it's similar to the din of Tumah, that just like Tumah, the tongue is considered external. So also the Gabi Hazah, the tongue is considered external.
What is it coming to express it to teach about?
It's talking about the tummy person. The Pasuk Shah is very good that the Torah person sprinkles onto the tummy person on the third and seventh day, and he purifies him, but by the sprinkling. But the fact that it mentions the word the tummy, so that means that we're going with the hilchos tumah. The same thing that would have made him tummy externally is the same thing which you're going to sprinkle on. So since as far as becoming tummy, the tongue is considered external, so the gabe sprinkling on it also the tongue is considered external. From there, Rebbe learns out.
Like Rebbe.
That's what Rebbe says. Rebbe Sabri. All that was to explain Rebbe. Rabban and Sabri, they take the end of the pasuk. V'chito b'yom hashvi'i v'chibes b'gadav v'rachatz b'mayim. They're going to stress v'rachatz b'mayim. It also says v'chito. V'chito means the purifying him with the sprinkling. It says he sprinkles him on the seventh day, and then he goes to the mikvah. Goes to the mikvah. V'rachatz b'mayim. So they learn out that the pasuk is comparing the sprinkling to the mikvah. And as far as the mikvah, we said that the tongue is considered internal. So also the sprinkling, the tongue is considered internal, and it's not a good sprinkling. The Gemara says the pasuk hidash in both ways, so we don't know what to do anymore. It means whose drush is better than the other. Here we said that Rebbe dashed it from the word tameh, and the Rabbanan dashed it from the word v'rachatz. The word v'chito was in between. Here's the word v'chito. I wrote it twice just because of the overlap of the Rabbanan. Rebbe ended it by that word. The Rabbanan began by that word. It's really one pasuk. Just the word v'chito is repeated on the highlighting. Whatever. So it says that you have tameh. The first word of tameh would talk about the way it became tameh, which would be that the tongue is considered external. The last word v'rachatz b'mayim is talking about going to the mikvah, and over there the tongue is considered internal. And the word v'chito was in the middle. You learn it out from the beginning, you learn it out from the end. That's the way the Gemara explains the focus Rabban and then Rebbe. But the Gemara says everyone's it's equal drushes. How do you know which drush is better? How do they know how to drush dashin? Rabban and Nami the damye l'toma. How come they don't dash like Rebbe? It's right in the middle. The chito is in the middle. You could have dashed in the beginning that it's considered external. The answer is Tara mitara have a leila mela. They prefer to learn out Tara from Tara because the hazah is a kind of process of making a Torah. The mikvah is the process of making a Torah. You need both of these things. So it's more similar to the Torah process than the Tumah process. So if you have a choice, which one to learn it out from, it's more mustaber to learn it out from the Torah. So therefore, by Torah, you see mikvah, you see the tongue is considered internal, and you don't have to have the mouth open in order that the water should touch the mouth. So too, the gabe hazah, the tongue is considered internal, and it's not a good hazah. And Rebbe, the damei l'tefila. Why doesn't Rebbe dash the way the Rabbanan dash it? It's equal. The pasuk v'chito was in the middle. You could have dashed it just as well. The answer is v'chibas b'gadav hefseka inyan, because it says this word in the middle. V'chibas b'gadav. He doesn't like the dash. He doesn't want to compare v'chito to v'rachatz b'mayim because in between it says v'chibas b'gadav. It's an interruption. So he doesn't want to learn that the pasuk is telling you that the hazah is similar to the tefillah because there's an interruption in the pasuk. So therefore, he rather dashes from the beginning. There is no interruption over there. The person who became tamei, and the third is he's mezamaz, the person who's tamei, the third is seventh day, and he sprinkles on him. So therefore, he learns out that it's similar to mikvah, which is considered internal. The Gemara is happy with that. The Gemara finished the drushes machlokes if the tongue lagabe hazah is considered internal or external. The Gemara has that kasha, which probably we know already because we've learned it out many times. We said that everybody agrees that the tongue is considered internal as far as going to the mikveh. You don't have to open up your mouth. And everybody knows, people go to the mikveh, they don't open up their mouth. And you ask them, the water didn't get to your mouth. So you tell them, you don't have to. This Gemara said that that's considered based on stone, that the mouth is considered internal as far as mikvah goes, because it's not similar to basa. Besor is external. That was the Gemara. But the Gemara is a kasha because we seem to say that Rebbe holds that the water does have to go into his mouth. The Sover Rebbe, Linyan Tvila, B'Ketam and Dami, does Rebbe hold as far as mikvah is considered internal and he doesn't have to open up his mouth? Amr Rabin, Amr Abada, Amr Rebbe Yitzchak, a story that was said over by these people. Ma'aseh b'shivcha shel beis Rebbe. There was a shivcha katanis. The shivcha katanis also becomes tamei and she has to go to the mikvah. So she's like a Chalsi Jew. A shivcha katanis is not just a worker. She goes to the mikvah. She becomes chayv mitzvahs kisha. So there was a shivcha that went to the mikvah. A shivcha of Rebbe's household went to the mikvah. Shetabla, the alza, the nimsa etzem ben shina, that she came out of the mikvah and she saw that there was something between her teeth. There was a bone stuck between her teeth. So is it a good mikvah? She went to the mikvah, but there was a chatzitza in her teeth. But tzricha Rebbe tefillah cheres, and Rebbe said she has to go to the mikvah again, take out the bone, and then go to the mikvah. So you see that there is a chatzitza in the mouth. The more things that according to Rebbe, you have to open up your mouth in order the water should go in. So the more says, famous answer, you don't have to actually water should come in. But there is, if it couldn't come in, even if you'd open up your mouth, it wouldn't come in. That's called that it's not possible to have bias mind. So even Rebbe holds that that's not good. Not a Gemara brings the famous Rab Zera. Rab Zera, Dam Rab Zera, call it Roy the Bila and Bila Makevas Bo. The word bila means to mix, which means by mincha you have to mix the flour together with the oil. And it says that if you bring, and you don't, if you didn't mix it, it's okay, it's kosher. You had the mincha, you had the flour and the oil, and you did not mix it. The chatchila, it says you're supposed to mix it. You didn't mix it, it's still a kosher mincha. But it says that if you brought it in a big kli, a huge kli, I think it's more than 60 saron, that it's very big, and you put everything, the right measurements, the right amount of flour, the right amount of, I shouldn't say flour, solas, put solas, and you put the oil. It's not a kosher mincha. Why? Because it's such a big volume that you can't mix it. It's impossible to mix it. But the kasha is, well, you don't have to mix it. Yeah, it's kosher even if you don't mix it. What's the problem? And this Reb Zera said that has to be roy lebila. It has to at least be able to do mixture. If it's able to do the mixture, even if he didn't do it, it's not makif. But if it's not roy lebila, bila makif as well. If it's not possible, then it's makif. So too, by us we're going to say that it does not need bias mine. The mouth, based on storm, does not need bias mine. It doesn't have to have water to actually come into the mouth, but you have to have roy bias mine. It has to be that it should be able to come in. So therefore, when you go to the mikvah, you do have to, a woman does have to check that she shouldn't have any chatzitza in her mouth, even though she doesn't have to open her mouth, the water doesn't actually come in. But it is necessary that it should be roy bias mine.
So they might be in their mouth.
Yes, or else it's a chatzitza. If there'll be a chatzitza in the mouth, so it's not a good mikvah. Like Rabbi said, you have to go to the mikvah again. For the roy labila, any roy labila, bila makevas bo. So all that was a tangent. It wasn't our subject. We're talking about Sirus. The subject talked about David Kanani, and it does come out maybe that they're also get to David Kanani also. That's what it talked about, the Lashon and the Sirus as far as David Kanani. But the Gemara brought it at the end of the Hazor, and that was the whole parenthesis today. That wasn't the subject, was really a side issue. And now we go back to our subject about David Kanani. That we said Sirus is a machlokas, Sirus Beitzim. That was what the Rabbanan did in Zunya. They had a question. They asked Rabban Nuna. He didn't know the answer. They got all upset. Karnuna, Kalta fish, they called him. And now the Gemara said, if we came to Rav Chisda told him that it's a price and it says it's a machlokas. Rebbe holds that Sirus Beitzim is considered a mum. It's Gumsha Bagoli, and he goes free. And the Rabbanan and who is it? Ben Nazai, they hold not. Machlokas. The Gemara Namad base continues. Ketanoi. The Gemara finds a machlokas tanoim about the subject of a Sirus Beitzim. Is it considered a Goli or not? So this subject. This time is talking about the horse. It's talking about a mum. I think it's talking about a mum over here. I think was comparing it that a mum is also only Goli. We had that on Amar Aleph that is partial to the Gemara that a mum on a korban is only if it's on an open, revealed place on the animal, not internal. And it says in the pasuk about ma'uf kasus v'nasuf v'charus, all kinds of damages to the organ. And the word ma'uf literally would mean if it's squashed, kasus crushed, nasuk torn, karus cut, four kinds of blemishes on the organ. So the Brisa starts off. The pasuk here. Maybe if we look at the pasuk. Here's the pasuk. That you're not allowed to bring a korban from these animals that the organ was damaged. Now the organ, what does the organ mean? So here it says, "Kulan bebeitzim divrei Rabbi Yehuda." The word seems to say that it's talking about the testicles, and he says all of them, all four of them are talking about the testicles. And the Gemara right away explains it doesn't mean only the testicles. That's the Gemara jumps in. Bebeitzim below begid. Maybe put this in parentheses. The Gemara is interjecting. Does he mean to say not going to beitzim and not on the organ itself? Can't be. Ella kulan afa beitzim. That's what Rabbi means to say. That not only on the gid, not only on the organ itself, if the organ was smashed or crushed or torn or cut, that's only considered a mum. Even on the testicles, also it's considered a mum. That's what Rabbi Yehuda holds. But Belezer ben Yaakov Omer, kulam begid, which we now know means not going to gid. Everybody holds that the gid. Everybody holds that if the aver itself was damaged, it's a puzzle korban. That's considered golden. That's surely considered revealed. But the question was the beitzim, the testicles, is that considered revealed or not? Comes out of machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda holds that it is, because he says it applies to the beitzim also. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov holds that it's not. He holds only on the gid. So what we said before is machlokes Rabbi and the Rabbi Nazai. Here we find another machlokes that Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi, that is considered golden, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov holds like Nazai, Tanakama, that it's not considered golden. And here comes our third shita that we didn't talk about till now. Till we only had two shitas, so yes or no. And Rabbi Yossi Omer, Mach v'chosov sapet beitzim. He divides between the four kinds of women. Two of them are considered more revealed. It comes out that the point is not if the organ is revealed, the beitzim, but if the mum is revealed or not. Do you see the damage? So Rashi says, here's the Rashi, and let's point out the Rashi over here. Rashi says the minkatfe, the damage that they have on the testicles when they're crushed or squashed is more noticeable than if it was torn, the sac was torn or cut. So therefore he says that machachos is such a big damage that it has a noticeable damage that's considered even in the testicles it's noticeable. But nosef v'choros is only noticeable on the organ itself, but not on the beitzim. So this is our third shita. Just to sum up the whole Gemara from yesterday, that the question was, as far as Eved Kanani, that he goes out with Rosh Yevorim. We said that there were two conditions. One, it has to be Begoloi, and the second condition has Eina Choseh, that it should be an irreparable damage. So the question was, is the testicles, is that considered revealed or not? And Rabbi Menuna didn't know. The first word machlokes between Rebbe and Nazai and Rabbanan. Rebbe holds that it's considered revealed, and Rabbanan and Nazai hold that it's not. The Gemara found another machlokes. Some hold yes, some hold not. And then you have a third sheet. Rabbi Yossi says that it depends which damage was done to it. Some damages will be noticeable on the testicles, and some are not. So that's the end of the Gemara. In between, we got some more information about Azah and Mikvah and Tumah, other issues about if it's considered revealed or not. But as far as our subject, that's the end of the sugya. Machlokes, if it's considered the goloi or not. But we had a question this morning. This was Macharusa. We had a difficulty in the whole sugya that the Gemara talks about the comparison between the Chav Dalet Rosh Yevom, which is really, by the way, 26. It says 24. It's really 26 because the Shein Ayin is perish in the pasuk, and that's besides the 24. The 24 we said is the 10 fingers and the 10 toes, and then you have the 2 ears and the nose and the organ. It's 24. Plus the Shein Ayin is 26. And the Gemara compares the two sugis about the Michya. There was a tzaraz, there was a nega on one of these limbs, and they became some healed part of the nega, and that's going to make that issue become tummates instead of the sim and tumah. So it says on the Rosh Yevorim, it's not considered a mechia. The reason is because the Rosh Yevorim, you can't see the whole thing at the same time, because all of them by the tips of the Yevorim, so they're not, you can't see the whole thing at the same time. The Kohen has to look at one side, look at the other side. That's not l'chol ma'arei any Kohen, so therefore it's not considered a mechia. The issue by the Eved Kanani has nothing to do with the tips. What does that have to do with the tips? There's no halacha about the tips, the Rosh Yevorim. Over there's a technicality that the point of the Rosh Yevorim is that you don't see the whole thing at the same time. Right? Eved Kanani has nothing to do with that. It just says Shein V'ayin, and you learn out anything which is similar with two similarities, that it's Mumshe V'Goloi and Eina Choseh. So it's nothing to do with the tips. And the Gemara Tafka also happened to say also that the jaw, that the Gemara said that the jawbone is considered Rosh Yevorim. So a little difficulty. How come we call it Rosh Avrohom and we call it 24? 26 has nothing to do with that. It has to do more with the two conditions. Not if it's considered the tip of the Aver or not. By Michya, over there, it's after telling the tip, and here it's not. So we don't have clarity on that yet. So we continue the Masechta, and this parak is all really about Kinyanim. The whole thing comes out of the beginning of the Masechta. Started with Deisha Niknes, Shalosh Drachim. That's the main subject of Kiddushin. But right away, we went off the side subject about Yibum, and then about Evet Ivri, Amavriya, Nirza, Evet Kanani, and now we're going further. All kinds of Kinyanim. So the whole first parak is about Kinyanim and nothing about Kiddushin. We'll get back to Kiddushin on Daf Mem Aleph, which is Daf Yomi, is tomorrow's Daf. They're finishing up today, but Mem Aleph and Beis. But we're still in the middle of the first parak, which is all about Kinyanim, nothing to do with Kiddushin. So here goes the Gemara. Magasa, how you acquire an animal? How do you acquire an animal? You want to sell an animal? How do you buy it? How do you make a kinyan? So the Mishnah says the difference between a behemoth gasa and a behemoth daka. Behemoth gasa means a big animal, and behemoth daka means a small animal. But it doesn't mean the size of this particular animal, if it's a month old or if it's 5 years old. Depends what kind of animal. Behemoth gasa means a horse, a donkey, a mule, camel, all those are called, even if it's a small baby, colt. It's also considered behemoth gasa. Behemoth daka means a sheep, a goat. I didn't mention the cow also before. Behemoth gasa, a cow. Should have said it right away. A cow, then the horse and the donkey, all those are considered behemoth gasa. Behemoth daka means a sheep and a goat. Those are called behemoth daka. Anything else between a behemoth daka? Those are the only two. Something which similar, you have trait for animals also, but that's called behemoth daka. So behemoth gasa niknes b'mesira, but daka bagba. The first sheet and this is Meir Rabbi Eliezer goes together. Meir Rabbi Eliezer. So they hold that there's a difference between a behemoth gasa and a behemoth daka. Behemoth gasa is the mesira. A daka bagba. Agba means to pick it up, to actually pick it up. So that surely, I think, if I got it straight, that agba is surely a better kinyan. That's the best kinyan to pick it up. Some hold 3 tvachim, some hold 1 tefach. How do you have to pick it up off the ground? So that's the best kinyan. So the behemoth gasa is not so practical to pick it up. So here it says that behemoth gasa niknas b'mesira. So you give it over. How do you give it over? So there we had a couple of pages ago. You give over the reins, or he holds onto the package that's on it, or something else that shows how the owner is giving it over to the buyer, and you don't have to move the animal at all. You just give over the reins as such. That's the way the makna behemoth gasa. A daka. It sounds like for a daka, it sounds like it's not good enough. According to our mayor, it's farish that it's not good enough. You have to dafka do agba to pick it up. If to pick up the sheep, you have to pick up the goat. And also, Rashi says, Rashi also is mashma that Mashiach for sure is not good either. There's another king called Mashiach, which the Gemara is going to say in a second. That means you just pull it. You pull it. You got a question how much you have to pull it. You pull it a little bit. You have a regel, or you pull it the whole length of the animal. But the males that's not good. Dafka bagba. So behemoth gasa, you don't pick it up. You just hand it over. And daka, according to Rabbi, the only way to become it is to pick it up. That's what they hold. They don't seem to talk about behemoth gasa. They seem to agree behemoth gasa that the sheikh is not good. That's what it seems. And but they do hold by daka that you don't have to pick it up. It's also good enough to pull it. So they only argue on one point. Then Bagan said they also seem to hold that the Sima. We'll see, maybe some things I'm saying is not accurate according to everybody, but Ben Bagan said so far we only saw one kinyan. Ben Badak was a machlokas if you have to pick it up, or you could pull it as well. Pulling it is also good enough. The question that the Gemara talk about is which is a better kinyan, Meshicha or Masira? It seems that Hagbah is surely the best. To pick it up is the best kinyan. And a Mashicha is sure less than Hagbah. The question is between Mashicha and Masira, which one is a better kinyan? To pull it or to hand over the reins. So Rashi says that Masira is better than Mashicha. And Taisa says Mashicha is better than Masira. It's based on the Gemaras, but let's hold on to that machlokas. So the Mishnah, when it said about Behemoth Gasa, it said Nasira. Torash Rab Kim Chunya, Behemoth Gasa, Niknas b'Mashicha. Rav Darshan in a place called Kim Chunya. Behemoth Gasa is acquired with Mashicha. So we can learn the whole time the Gemara two ways, but it's hard to juggle back and forth. So maybe we'll just take one shita. It seems that Ikar shita is like Tosfos, that Mashiach is better than Masira. So we learn the Gemara, if we can learn the Gemara like that, even though it's not so simple, Rashi is different. Just to say the halach at the end, the Rambam goes like Tosfos, the Shulchan Aruch says like Tosfos, the Ramah brings out a Yeshomim like Rashi. So maybe just for the simplicity to learn the sugya like Tosfos, and just to mention that Rashi argues. Later on, we'll say Rashi, but to learn the sugya like Tosfos, that Mashiach is better than Masira. So when the Mishnah says Behem Agas and Niknas ben Masira, it means Masira is good and surely Mashiach is good. And Daka they said that all this is not good. You need Dafka Agba, and the Chachamim say that Mashiach is also good for Behem Daka, but for nobody. But the Mishnah said that Behem Agas is good with Masira, and Maluma Tosfos that Kal B'chomer Mashiach. Mashiach is even better. So if you want to buy a cow, so Rabbi Lezer will say that it's good enough to hand over the reins. Surely you could pull it, but it's good enough to hand over the reins. And now Rav in Kimchunya, he said Behem Agas and Niknas b'Mashiach, which if we say that Mashiach is a better Kenyan, he means to say Dafka b'Mashiach and not Masira. You can learn the Gemara very different, but I'm just learning one way that Mashiach is better than Masira. So if the Mishnah says Masira, nobody argued on that. The Chacham also didn't argue. They just said about Behem Daka, but about Behem Agasa, the Masira. And Rav said Mashiach, which is a stronger Kenyan, and Masira is not good. Ashkechinu Shmuel the Talmidim of Rav. Shmuel met up with the Talmidim of Rav, and he asked them, "Does Rav say that? Me Amar Rav Behem Agasa Niknas b'Mashiach." The room was going around that Rav said in Kimchunya that Behem Agasa has to have Mashiach. So he said, "Did Rav say that? Ba'anan Tanan, Ba'anan b'Masira Tanan." Our Mishnah says Masira is good enough. So why did he say that you need Mashiach? It's good enough just to hand over the reins. And also Rav Nami, this is a little hard on the words, but that's that Rav Nami b'Masira Amar. I also in the past I knew that Rav said Masira. This is that Shmuel is saying, I know what Rav said, and I used to hear that Rav said Masira. And now I heard that in Kimchunya, he said you have to have Dafka Mashiach. This is all, it's not regular, the way to read the Gemara, but this seems to be over here a little different than the regular style. Shmuel is asking Talmidim of Rav, did Rav have remorse? Did he change his mind from what he used to say? He went against the Mishnah and what he used to say. The answer is that the Talmidim told Shmuel, he holds like the following Tana. We're going to find the Brisa, and the answer is yes. He changed his mind, and he doesn't hold like the Mishnah, even though the Mishnah says that Masir is good enough. He held like somebody else. The Tanya that both of them means a Behem Daka and a Behem Agasa. In our Mishnah, you don't have such an opinion. Our Mishnah said Masira, and the Chachamim in our Mishnah just said that Behem Daka b'Mashiach, and you don't need Hagbah. But he didn't argue about Behem Agasa. But in the Brisa it says representative Mashiach, so it holds that comes out that Behem Agasa is only B'Mashiach and not B'Masira. If we learn that Tosfos is true, the Mashiach is better. So the Mishnah said Masira is good enough, and Rav holds like the Chachamim. She did not mention in our Mishnah that Masira is not good enough. You have to have Dafka Mashiach. So if the seller will hand over the reins to the buyer, our Mishnah says that is good. But Rav holds like the Chachamim that is not good. The Dafka has to pull it. The Mishnah Brisa continues with another shita, which also is not in our Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon Omer Zuba Agba, that both the Agba is the best Kenyan, and he says both for Behem Daka and a Behem Agasa, the only way you can is if you pick it up. So that's really hard. The Gemara is going to say right away a sheep or a goat, okay, but now you're going to pick up a cow also. And the Gemara goes further. Masif Lav Yosef Elam Yata Pillar Rab Shimon B'Meikna. How are you going to own an elephant? The Gemara could have asked the cow also. The Gemara goes even more extreme. Someone wants to sell an elephant. How could you pick it up? According to Rab Shimon, the only way that you can is by picking it up. You can't pick up an elephant. So how is it possible to do the kinyan on the Behemah Agasa? So the Gemara is going to find the eitzes how to do it. The Gemara is not going to fall down. You're not going to be Mashiach, you're not going to be Masira, you have to dafka do Akbar. Now you have a technicality. How could you pick up a big animal? So the Gemara is going to find the eitzes how to be Kona, not dafka to pick it up. Elamiyata Pilu Rab Shimon b'Meik. How could you be Kona an elephant? According to Rab Shimon, you can't do Akbar. So maybe there's a Behemah Gasa that you could. You have a small colt, maybe you could, but you have a problem. The animal is too big, so you have to do a different kinyan. You can't do Mashiach, you can't do Masira, So what are you going to do? Chalipin. Chalipin means a kinyan sudar, that the buyer gives the seller some kind of a kli, and the animal becomes transferred to him. You can't do if Mashiach and Masir are not good enough. Akbar you can't physically do, so do a different kinyan. Inami, different ways I make a kinyan also, that you rent the place, the buyer is going to rent temporarily for a few minutes the place where the animal is standing, where the elephant is standing, and then he's going to be conned the elephant with kinyan chotzer, because if I rented it, it's my property, and now the animal is in my property, so that's also a way to be conned. And you can't find different ways of making a kinyan. Maybe I brought kelim and mulichan tachas raglo. Bring 4 kelim and put under the feet of the elephant. So I might have thought that it means that it should pick him up. But it seems you see the next line of the Gemara doesn't mean that. That not that you put the elephant on a cleat that he stands up like in the circus. He goes onto the 4 kelim. It's pretty big stunt to do that. But it means that you put a cleat that the animal puts his foot into. You have like a basin. He puts his foot into the 4 basins. Under each foot, he put a basin and he puts his foot into it. So now you call it kinyan chotzer. Not that you call it kinyan akbar. You can't pick up the animal. Probably if you would put him onto a basin to stand up, he would probably break it. So it's talking about you put it upright, and he puts his foot into the basin, and that's how you call it, because it's in your chotzer, which is a big kiddush, because the whole animal's not in your chotzer. Only his 4 feet are. The Gemara says that's good enough. Maybe the Gemara has a side issue about this. If that's true, Shamat Mina, Kalev Shalokech, B'Shus Mocher, Kana Lokech. If you hold that this is good, the case is the animal, the more understands that the animal is in the seller's B'Shus. The elephant is in the seller's B'Shus. And he says that the buyer brings 4 basins and puts it under the feet of the elephant, and that's how he's kona. But that wasn't so simple, because we know that Kalev Shalokech is not so simple if it's kona B'Shus Mocher. We had this a couple of times, that some hold yes, some hold not, that if you're inside the domain of the seller, and so some machlokes says that's a kinyan or not. So if you want to say that this is good, you mean to say that you're paskening that the kli of the lokeach that's inside the domain of the mocher, the lokeach could buy like that kinyan chotzer? So much says not a raya. You're right. If we inside the domain of the seller of the elephant, then it wouldn't be good. You have to go out to a place which is a simta. Simta means like a side street, or some place which is not a rishus harabim, but it's not also a private rishus. And over there you can do it. But not you wouldn't be able to do it in the rishus of mocher.
What is the simta?
Simta, today they call it.
Right.
Today they call it simta also. They call it a side street. Side street. And 2 more words. Next page. Inami, the chavila is moros. So Rashi and Taisus both say the chavila is moros is just a way to do akbar. It's a way that you should get the animal to get up high. So the Gemara doesn't talk about kelim, probably because they're going to break, maybe, or Taisus says because maybe it's not big enough, it's not 3 tefachim, whatever the difficulty, why you can't get the animal on a cleat to pick them up. So chavila is moros. So you're going to have some kind of branches, bundles of
Bales of hay.
bales. But the words, but this moros means vines. Vines. Moros is vines. And the Gemara, according to Rashi's pshat, is just like you say, something, hay, stones, anything that makes the animal go up. So you want the animal to get up 3 tefachim or 1 tefach. So how you do akbar? You try to pick him up, you can't. So you make him, you pull him, but the pulling is also not kona. But you're going to get him to go on something which is elevated. That's going to be the kinyan. So again, what the Gemara says, Rav Shimon holds that even behemoth gas is only acquired with akbar. How do you do akbar on an elephant or a cow for that matter? So the Gemara said a couple of bases. And you can't pick it up. You can't pick it up. So do chalipin or do kinyan chotzer. Sometimes chotzer is not going to be good because it's going to be kela of shell. It's going to be kela. If you do chotzer, that's okay. But chotzer, if you want to put kelim under his feet, then it's only going to be good in the simta, because kela shalkona maybe is not kona the shus mocha. And then the one is another. It's if you want, you can do akbar. You get him elevated by making him walk up onto some elevated place. Chavila Ismar. Taisus points out that's a cute shot. Taisus says Chavila Ismar happens to be in the Gemara. Says that it's elephant food. It happens to be that's what elephants eat. So he says a pshat that they're not going to make him walk. Taisus says, why say Chavila Ismar? He could have said hey or something like that. So Taisus says that, who says this? Rabbi Shalom. The kasha, my nakat chavilas moros, think of the one more. Why you have to just want a case that you should stand on something? The Farsh Rav Meshulam, the lachi nakat chavilas moros, because it's animal food, it's elephant food, and we can more to that. So you pick up the chavilas moros that he should jump up to get it. There's just a way to get the encourage the animal to get up, like the circus trick that he's going to make the animal to jump up because he wants to get to his food. But whatever the pshat is, the Gemara says, figure it out. But according to Reb Shimon, it's only Akbar. If you can't do Akbar, either figure out how to do Akbar or do a different kinyan, do Chalipin, do Chatzah. Adkan. So in the halacha, the Shulchan Aruch, the Rambam is pretty simple. He says that Anavim Bagasa and Anavim Adaka, Mashiach is good and surely Akbar. It doesn't talk about Masira. It doesn't say anything about Masira. So they say that the Rambam holds like Tosfos that Masira is less than Mashiach. And when the Mishnah says that Masira is good, the Rav says in Kimuchah, no, you need Dafka Mashiach. And that's how the Rambam paskins. That Masira is not his handing over. He hand over the reins, some kind of a showing of transfer of ownership. And Amish said that it's good, but Rav said that it's not good. You need Dafka Mashiach. Of course, Akbar is good. Which one? As far as Kinyanim, I don't think so. That was the price that we had. Yes, that was the price we had a couple of days ago that says Ketzah Masira. But now we don't pass like that. No, that was a price, I think. We can look at it. They bring down Chav Beis and Beis, I think. Ketzah, this was Botani, Ketzah Masira. It brings here Baba Basra, Ayin Name and Beis, Tosefta, the Kiddushin, so it's not a Mishnah. I think, if I'm reading it right, Ketzah Masira, Achsa Batil, the Tlafa, Besara, Bukab Shabbat, Beshtuv Shabbat, Bepinga Shabbat, Bzug Shabbat, Savar Kana. That was quoted on Chav Beis and Beis. And our Mishnah says there's such thing as Masira, but according to this Pshat, Rav says not. Rav says that only Mashiach, because he passes like this Chachamim, and of course Akbar is good. Of course Akbar is good. Akbar is better than Mashiach, but it's not so practical always to pick up. My Chavusha told me that even a sheep is not so simple to pick up. Even a behemoth, it depends if it's a little Ben Shana, but you have big sheep. He told me a story that there's somebody near Mispei Yichod that he has a farm, and a Talmud Chacham, it seems, and people came to visit his farm, and it was a shearing season, and he offered them that they could buy 5 sheep and get the mitzvah of Reish Sagez. So they did, but he said, you have to do Akbar. So really, we possibly can do Mashiach also, but Mashiach, we're going to see that it can't be in the Rishus, in the domain of the Mocher, so it was his farm. So if you want to do Mashiach, you have to go take it out of the farm. So
property from him.
What?
Buy property from him.
By property, be socher. But he said, do Akbar. Go ahead, do Akbar. So it wasn't so easy. Some of them weren't able to pick up the sheep. Some were. So you have to be a strong guy to pick up a big sheep. Also, you see a big sheep sometimes, even though it's a Daka, but it's big. So that's how it says in the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam that Behema Gasa or Daka is Niknas from Mashiach. And for sure Akbar, if you could, for sure. But Masira not. And that's Tosfos and the Rambam. But Rashi learns in the whole sugya that Mashiach is less than Masira. And if Mashiach is good, then for sure Masira is good. And he learns the Gemara. We didn't learn Rashi the whole time, but just to go over Rashi, Rashi says Masira is better than Mashiach, and the Tana that says Masira, not Mashiach, only Masira. And then when Rav says Mashiach is coming to be lenient, that Mashiach is good enough. Not that it's coming to be Machman, the Mashiach, to be making. No, that was Reb Shimon. That anyway, Reb Shimon says Dafka Akbar. That's because Akbar for sure is better. Akbar is the best. Akbar is the best. Then the question is between Masira and Mashiach, which one is better? So the standard, the Shulchan Aruch, Tosfos, the Rambam, they say that Mashiach is better and Masira is not. Masira is less. Amish says Masira is good for Behema Gasa, but Rav Paskin like this Chachamim that Dafka Mashiach, so you can't do Masira. But the Rashi learns that Masira is better. So the Kasha Rav was being lenient to say that Mashiach is also good enough. And that's what Shmuel asked me, the Rav. The Mishnah says Masira, not Mashiach. Say, I was like the Chachamim, the Mashiach is also good. But Masira for sure is good. So it comes out of Machlokes, Poskim, Rashi and Tosfos comes out of Machlokes and Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, if you could do Masira. Some say Behema Gasa, some say even Behema Daka. But probably L'chatchila, better to do like Tosfos, that's how Shulchan Aruch paskins, that Masira is out. The only Kenyan is Mashicha, and for sure Hagba.
Sheikh is pulling towards.
Right, pulling. How much you have to pull? We had Machlokas before, that Machlokas over there before. We had Chab Beis and Beis. Case of Mashicha. Some say that you have the regular, and some say it has to go its whole
body
length,
length.
whole body length. Okay, so it's relatively early, even though it's an hour. But usually we go further. But that's as far as I got. So we're up to the next mission, right? And that's Chavav, and the rest of the world is up to Daf Mem.
Okay.
And Bez Hashem, we'll get there. They said that today is halfway through Shas.
Okay.
That if you got to when you get to Daf Mem, we'll be halfway through
Never
Shas.
it's happened to Shas. Okay.
So Bez Hashem, in a couple of about 2 weeks or so, we'll be halfway through Shas.
Yes, it is. That's for sure. Today's fun.
What is that?
Today's Vav